Hey everybody, welcome to Monday Night Live in Lexington, you guys. My name is Catherine Kaufman and I'm a psychic medium here in Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome to my every Monday night show. Monday Night Live in Lexington. So this show, we just kind of explore what and who we are in this big world, in this place called life. And we just explore this together on Monday nights. We go over a lot of really interesting topics like ghosts and spirits, life after death. Hey, over here to you guys on Instagram. And shout out to Lucille, Melissa, and Miss Cleo. Big kiss to Miss Cleo, George McKinney, Trina. Thanks for joining us this evening. Hey to all you guys over there on my professional page. And for those of you that are tuning in, if you haven't gone and given my professional page a like, please do. It's Catherine Kaufman, Psychic Medium. Just give it a like and a follow, and you're going to stay up to date on the daily planetary influences. This is a free little mini astrological type of forecast that I do every single day on both of my Facebook pages and Instagram. And it kind of gives you a little moon look at what's the day going to be like what is the major house influence for the day. So hey to Corey Southworth, hey girl, Rob Turner, Christine, Trina, and a special shout out to Miss Linda Tipton and Rose. So tonight's episode is dedicated to the study of artifacts, and not in the way that you think of an artifact. So I'm going to give you my interpretation of what an artifact is, and it's a little bit off of the regular interpretation of an artifact. So a regular definition for an artifact is an object made by a human being, typically an item of cultural or historical interest, like gold and silver artifacts. Other terms that we use are relics and articles. But my feeling about an artifact, and this is just my interpretation and how I feel about it, are these objects, and they're certainly man-made or man-created like the original definition states, but these are objects that are altered by a resonant contact with a living being, and they're imprinted with resonant energy of the person that has come into significant or continued close contact with the item. I feel like a true artifact must hold the attention or focused intent of the person who's either carrying it or attached to it. Somehow it has to have either a special meaning or a special focus for the person who has this item within their person. If any of you have any questions, I will be able to answer those on the personal page. If you're on the professional page and you want to join the live chat or you have a question, I did leave a link there that you can hit to jump over here to the personal page. Hey to Mindy, Barbara, Pamela, and Nancy. Thanks for joining us this evening. So let's look at items that are considered an artifact. And if you have any suggestions on what you think an artifact would be, please feel free to put that in the comments section as well. So mementos are huge. These are items with significant emotional values that great attention was placed on. So, you know, something like a memento would be something like this that has been passed down from mother to daughter and to another daughter. So something like this would be considered a memento. So these have significant emotional values, and you know, a lot of attention and energy is kind of focused on this one item. So mementos were huge for being artifact. And what is the good with an artifact? What is it used for? The thing about this is it is imprinted with the resonant energy of the person. So let's go over the difference between vibration and frequency, because that's what we're dealing with. Okay, we're dealing with vibration and frequency. So frequency in physics is the number of crests of a wave that move past the given point in a given unit of time, like how many oscillations per minute. That would be a frequency. And the frequency of a wave can be calculated by dividing the speed of the wave by the wavelength. So that gives you how many oscillations per unit of time that you're looking at. So then we look at vibration. Vibration is the oscillating, reciprocating, and other periodic motion of a rigid or elastic body of medium force from a position, a state of equilibrium. And so the vibration is different than the frequency. The frequency is the number of vibrations or oscillations within a certain time period, but the vibration is the oscillation or reciprocation itself. So you know how people will say, oh, I didn't like her, I didn't like him because they gave me a really weird vibe. So what they're talking about is the vibration of the actual person. So what's imprinted on the item, I feel like, is more of the vibration than the frequency. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with. And it was really interesting when I started looking at more in depth about the way that we pick up the vibration off of this is called psychometry. So some items don't have any vibration at all. So this is something I use every day, but if you, maybe if you picked it up, you would be able to get a vibration off of it, but it doesn't have my attention focused awareness or vibe on it, I don't feel. So now this would, because I feel like this is truly an artifact that has the imprinted vibration or attachment. So in order to get the focus of the person, you're going to kind of get an attachment there. This I'm not attached to at all. So it doesn't hold any significance for me. But this absolutely does. So Veronica agrees. Hey, Veronica. Hey, Mary Lee. And hey to Ina. Thanks for joining us this evening. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to just put them in the comments there, and I'll get to them as quick as I can. So another definition for vibration was a supernatural emanation bearing good or ill will, and that was the definition of that person's vibe really is gross, or that person's vibe is really off, or I really like the vibe of that person. So it's all about vibration. Vibration is what we're talking about. So this is the example of a memento. Pictures are huge, huge, huge artifacts. And the reason why we use an artifact is we're tapping into the vibration of the item to connect with the person that it was produced from. So the vibration of an artifact actually acts like a little bridge to that person, because it's so specific to the person. It like throws a bridge out there to them and connects with them in that fourth dimension. Okay. Now, in the old days, we had printed pictures, and this is a picture of my dad. So in the old days, this is a photographic film of it was a light-sensitive photographic film of paper, and it's processed in liquid chemical solution to produce the picture. Okay. Now, the key to this is light-sensitive photographic film. And we all know now from our research that as humans, we emanate and radiate light, and that is a wavelength. Frequency, vibration. Get it? Okay. So this holds the most specific frequency and vibration of the person in light-sensitive way. Now, nowadays, we're using digital photography, which is pretty much just as good as this. However, the only downside to having an artifact on digital is that you cannot hold the actual item in your hand while you're focusing on the person that you want to connect with. So digital photography now uses electronic photo detectors to capture the image through the lens. And so still we're dealing with light, frequency, vibration, electrical impulses um, for producing the photo on your digital photograph. So it's a kind of a big difference between the regular photograph and the digital photograph, but I think if you hold the camera probably in your hand, you could sense the vibration off of the digital photograph. I haven't tried it yet, but I feel like it would work. Maybe not as well as a picture, but certainly you can get one printed off of your digital photograph. Hey to Daniel Baker, Amanda, Paige, and Margaret, and Rhonda Gale, and Ann Fisher. So clothing and linen are big because they not only have the focus of the person and the attention, but also they're in close proximity to the electromagnetic field that your body produces, and that makes that vibratory imprint on the actual item. One of the biggest items that you can use for an artifact is the clothing or bed linen of a person who's passed on. And so what happens is when that person passes from body to spirit, the electromagnetic field is going to go through the physical object, and it imprints at the moment that it goes through that. And so some clothing and linen will test positive on EMF after someone passes on. Now, it's an artifact, but we go one step further. If it tests positive for EMF, then it is considered a haunted item, especially if the bed linen or the clothing produce apparitions or kind of activity in and around the area where the items are located. If any of you want the file that I have on haunted items, feel free to message me or just put a comment in the comment section. I'll be glad to forward that to you. And that kind of goes through how an item is considered haunted, why, what to do with it, you know, what you can do with it, and if you don't want it, what to do with it safely. Okay, so these other two things are one of the biggest things that you can use for artifact is a recording of the voice or a recording or a video of the actual person. Now, how you can use these to connect with someone who's passed on, if you're sitting doing your meditation and you're trying to get a message from them, if you just have these playing in the background so that it is sending that vibration out into the atmosphere around you, I promise you, you will get some type of message from that person. It may be like a flash of an image, it may be a symbolic image, it may be a gut feeling, because that's how entities communicate. They normally don't communicate through voice or written word. Normally it's through the mode of the subconscious, which is imagery, symbology, and feeling. And so those are the things that you're going to look for when you are using artifacts to try to connect with someone. So a recording of their voice or a video recording of the person just playing in the background while you're meditating, just get a pad of paper and a pen and just start to write the images that you get in your mind down. And that way you can kind of look at them after you get done with your meditation session and kind of put together, what is the message here that I need. But two, when you first start to do this exercise of meditation using an artifact, you want to ask a specific question for the person that requires some type of specific answer, because it needs to be your visit from them needs to be verifiable, and you need to be convinced that this is an actual message from them. So always ask for something to be answered, and it needs to be answered in the way that that person would have answered it were they here in the flesh. So video recordings are huge for that. So I always suggest when someone is diagnosed with a critical illness, something that may be terminal, I always suggest that the family and the person do audio recordings for the family, their favorite stories, their favorite memories, just sharing some of those things with the family, and that way the family can have those things later to look back on and to use as an artifact for continued contact. Hey to Ashley, Sally Hart, and James Matlin. Thanks for joining us, and shout out to Chastity. Okay, so hair is a huge one that's very, very much imprinted with the vibration of the person. And this goes way back, you guys, all the way back to, remember Victorian mourning jewelry? It was very common practice to save a lock of the person's hair and incorporate it into some kind of item, maybe a brooch, maybe a watch, maybe a pin that had the hair in it. And it was felt at the time that that carried that person's energy and that vibration. Even back in the 1700s, you know, we were feeling that vibration. And so the jewelry was worn every day because you wanted to keep that vibration or that artifact on you and next to you. So, and I got to looking about mourning jewelry and all the things that go with that. And so I decided that we're going to have to do a whole separate show for mourning jewelry, because some of the weird stuff that they used to do with these, you're going to find really fascinating, and it doesn't do it justice to just kind of skip over it. So we're going to do a whole separate show on that, but I wanted to give you just a little taste of mourning jewelry and what kind of weird it was. So here's a little tidbit. So in the 1850s, now diamond rings incorporated into mourning jewelry weren't very common. So a lot of the more wealthy families were able to incorporate diamonds into the mourning jewelry. So in the 1850s, a diamond ring with a coil of hair under the crystal, that was interesting. The hair inside of this ring from the deceased person would often be referred to as a collar, C-O-L-L-A-R. I thought that that was very interesting, and why would they put it under the crystal? So very interesting, and we'll get to a whole show just on mourning jewelry and all of those traditions, because they had a whole series of advancement in colors. So you would start out with black and you would end up with blue, and there was an array of colors in between that based on how far into the mourning process you were. And so I feel like that mourning jewelry, Victorian mourning jewelry, was one of the very first, very strong artifacts that were used by people to keep their loved ones' energy close to them. And they did that mainly because it was an item from the person, like the hair, but also because in the early 1700s, late 16th, 17th century, there were no photographs. And so they didn't have a picture like this to go back and look at and remember, or to have close to them. So they used the mourning jewelry to achieve that. Hey to Crystal Sparrow and Heather Smith Priest. So Chastity says, I've seen beautiful pieces made of hair. Absolutely. Some of those are so intricate, Chastity. They like drew pictures or painted pictures of trees on the ceramic. Okay, and let's say this was a piece of mourning jewelry. Instead of painting the stems on these violets, they might have incorporated the hair as the stems on the violets. So the hairs from that person were incorporated into the paintings on this mourning jewelry. And so they carried that vibration as well with them. Okay, moving right along, personal items that were favorite jewelry, or their, the person's favorite chair or their favorite pillow, something that they really loved, that they were very focused on and very aware of, that concentrated their energy or their vibration into that item. So these are all artifacts that you can use to connect with your loved ones. Now, how are we connecting with this? And what we're doing is we're using psychometry. And for those of you that don't know what psychometry is, it is encompassed under the clairsentient ability, and clairsentient encompasses like 3 different areas. And clairsentient means clear sensing. So you're using your senses to pick up energy or to pick up information. And so what that is gut feeling, okay, empaths that have a gut feeling, clairsentient knowing or psychic knowers, and then also the third ability under clairsentience is psychometry, or I feel. I can get a feeling off of something just by touching it. And so the feeling that you get is the vibration, or the imprintation of the vibration and the frequency from that person who this was significant to. So psychometry is what we're using to pick up or connect with the person who owned or had the item. So psychometry is from Greek, called spirit soul measure. So measuring the soul spirit. And so you're going to take a token object and use this form of extrasensory perception, characterized by touch or feel. And so it was thought in the olden days that an object may have an energy field that transfers knowledge regarding to its object's history. So yes, it does transfer knowledge from the object's history to you. So you can also not only use this as an artifact to connect with your loved one, but you can pick up the history of this particular item. So what we have there is an artifact overlay. So the person's energy is imprinted or overlaid on the original item. So let's say this ceramic was baked in an oven in England, and someone of younger age held it and actually was responsible for putting the painting on there. So that person put their energy on this originally from it being made. And then we have the overlay of the person whose intent or focused awareness was on this, the grandmother that wore it, then the daughter that had it passed down to her. So you have an overlay of the original person who had it, and then the overlay of the person whose attention focused awareness was on this piece of jewelry. The nice thing about objects is you can check most of them. You can verify what you get off of an object. And what that does is it just kind of guides you, and it shows you how accurate you are. And once you're accurate on something like that, it gives you a little bit more confidence to keep trying and go forward with other things. So psychometry is how we're picking this stuff up. Now the big person in the psychometry that kind of took it out from the shadows was Joseph Rhodes Buchanan. He actually coined the term psychometry, or measuring the soul of an item. He came up with the idea that all things give off an emanation. And so what he meant by emanation is frequency and vibration. So Buchanan asserted that his particular psychism would supersede empiric science. And he believed that one day we would be using psychometry in a lot of different fields of science, and that how detailing the direct knowledge of psychometry would be applied to and affect the various branches of science. And it would also, he thought, elevate the various schools of philosophy and arts, thereby affecting wide social change and ultimately an enlightenment of humanity. So I don't know if that's going to come to pass within my lifetime, but it's certainly very interesting, because this was coined, or his thoughts on this were in his book, The Manual of Psychometry, The New Dawn of a Civilization, and the date is 1885. Now, one of the interesting things that we're seeing is that frequency and vibration are passed down through DNA. And so now what you're seeing with DNA testing are DNA tendencies, or tendencies vibration-wise that are passed down in the DNA of us today. And we're able to go back and look at these tendencies and see that how that vibration has been passed along through centuries, which is very interesting. So let me check for questions here. Hey to Dan Fine, Alicia Beatty, and Carolyn Harris Sparkman. Thanks for joining us. And continued hello over here on Instagram. So the process for using an artifact to connect with your loved one is the following. You want to get a comfortable chair. You can sit on your couch if you want to. If you have a recording or a video of the person, you can play it in the background and just kind of loop it. The item of the person's you want to hold in your hands. Hold in one hand and then put a paper and a pen pad in the other hand, or maybe a little desk in front of you, a little lap desk. Lap desks are perfect for that. Dim the lights. The first thing that you want to do is to say a prayer of protection, because you're opening your psyche to communication. So that always needs to be protected. So you're going to say a prayer of protection. And you're going to ask your angels or your spirit guides to be around you and protect you during this time of communication. So once you do that, then you can either put on some binaural beats for theta wave. Theta wave is the wavelength that we use for spiritual communication, because it's a trance-like state. And that's why in the early 1900s, one of the reasons why they called us trance mediums is because trance state, or the theta wave state, is the most conducive to spiritual communication. So you want to use that particular brainwave state, and you can get some binaural beats off of YouTube. You can buy a CD set of binaural beats, and you want to have those playing in the background as well, along with your recording or your video of the person that you're wanting contact with. Okay, so once you get all this stuff going, and of course you need to have the kids out of the house and whoever else out of the house that might come in and interrupt, because that's not going to be conducive. But you want to focus on the person and connecting with that person. And then once you do that focus, take a big deep breath and let it go, push the air out, and then try to open this chakra here and the third eye. You want to open the crown and the third eye to whatever imagery and sensations that you might receive. Now, you may get a flood of sensations. If so, you may not have time to write them down. Just let them come and try to remember them later. If you're getting them piece by piece, just jot down on your paper what they are. You do not have to make sense of them while you're doing this, okay? Sometimes when you end your session and you look back at what you've written, then you can kind of see and piece it together what the communication is supposed to be. So, but while you're doing it, do not try to make sense out of it, because you don't want to bring your conscious mind back into the process, because that will shut off any kind of information flow that you've got going on. But you're using these as a bridge, and you want to hold on to these and try to sense, try to feel with psychometry what the vibration of that person's is on there. And once you connect with that, that throws that bridge out there to them. Now, the images that you get sometimes do not necessarily mean what they are. Like if you get the image of a tree, that may not mean tree. That may be symbolic for family tree or roots, like putting your roots down, housing, buying a house, something like that. So always look at the symbolic interpretation of what you're getting as well, along with the physical meaning. And then once you do that, then try to put together the message that they're trying to get to you. And remember, it needs to answer specifically what you asked them to convey. So I would love to hear what kind of results you guys have if you decide to try this. Please let me know, or just PM me and let me know what happened. And if you're having trouble with the interpretation, just message me, how it went and what they showed you, and maybe I can help you put it together if you can't get the message by yourself. But anyway, I hope you guys give this a try. And don't forget, when you end your session, you need to close with a protective prayer as well, and thank your spirit guides and your angels for helping you out. I hope you guys enjoyed this Monday night's episode. I think since I got so involved in the morning jewelry about this, and it was so cool, I want to share that with you next week. So next week we're going to go into all the rituals of morning jewelry, and I'll try to have some pictures and stuff. So you guys have a fabulous week. I'll see you Friday for Fun Friday. Kisses from Kentucky. Bye, guys. Have a good night.